Hello everyone, welcome to Design Twist. This is Trevor, and today I'm going to be redesigning the Pokemon Flygon. I'll be detailing every step of my artistic process and just geeking out a little bit about a classic dragon Pokemon. I'm going to be changing up its anatomy, its type, its ability, and giving it a brand new signature move. So stick around for a little bit of my artistic exploration, a more dynamic drawing, the coloring steps, and the full breakdown of its gameplay changes. So to start off, I'm going to be doing a short exploration of how I want Flygon designed. I'm using Photoshop's symmetry tool during this process to reflect my work over a vertical axis. This is really helpful and highly applicable to designing stuff like creatures, buildings, vehicles, or machines. If you're taking on a challenge of designing something yourself, there's no reason to let yourself get bogged down with trying to keep everything symmetrical when there's a tool that does that for you. You can reflect your art across an axis or multiple axes, and it's a godsend if you're trying to design something with a weird amount of symmetrical elements, like a roof that's a pentagon shape or an amulet that has 7 points, something like that, etc. I'm working from an established design here, exploring Flygon's existing shapes and expression, but a lot of the time you just won't have an existing design. You're going to be making something new with no concrete idea in your head at the jump. The symmetry tool is a good shortcut that can help you generate interesting silhouettes and shape relationships in a design. Next time you're trying to come up with a cool creature or a robot or something, try literally just doing some scribbles or random shapes with the symmetry tool on. Interesting designs might just emerge organically, and that's a really cool part of concept art. So during this exploratory stage, I started with Flygon's regular silhouette as a base. I knew even from here that I wanted to change its legs more than anything else. Flygon's evolutionary line has design elements from various winged insects like dragonflies and mayflies, especially in the covered eyes. But most often I see it compared to an antlion. Well, because the larvae look like this. And Trapinch is the silliest possible way to draw that creature. I love it. Flygon is described in the various Pokedex entries as a flying creature that hunts prey in the desert. It uses sandstorms to cloak itself and generates a beautiful sound by buzzing its wings. And on the topic of sandstorm, as a ground type, Flygon is not susceptible to sandstorm damage in the game. And the dragon typing helps push its nature as a strong aerial predator with a bit of mystique behind it, so the typing does fit the lore at the end of the day. However, there's a huge problem with that. That being that I'm massively biased towards bug types. Trapinch and Vibrava are pretty much completely insectoid, but there's no bug type between the two of them. Flygon clearly contains much more of a reptilian dragon aesthetic. So moving forward, I asked myself, how far do I want to go with this? Do I want this Flygon to have a 3-part body with a separated thorax and abdomen? Or do I want it to be more dragon-shaped with its limbs and extra protrusions being more insectoid? Ultimately, I decided the most important thing would be injecting more bug influence into its existing design, but I wanted to be careful not to take it too far. I knew I wanted to carry the big silly toothy grin that Trapinch has, but for the final design to not be too dissimilar from the original Flygon that we all know and love. I want Flygon fans to be as excited about this redesign as they would for a Mega Evolution or a regional variant. Throughout this process, I noticed myself going really hard into the insectoid elements, but overcorrecting doesn't have to be a detriment to your creative process. I wanted to make Flygon bug-like, so I dialed it up a lot, and I really made it look like almost a killer mantis at some points in this process. But sometimes, if you're trying to make something unique, or really hone in on one design decision, overdoing it is good. It lets you throw out all of the ideas in your head, and then once you've put it all on the paper, dial it back to distill what worked and what didn't. As I worked through this sketch, I ran it by some of the folks in the Delicious James Discord server, and I got some really nice advice from Val and Kuro, so shout out to all them. And it was really helpful to making the legs, wings, and tail look a lot better. It's always important to run your work by other artists and creatives, people that you trust to be a good balance between critical and supportive. Artists need both of those things a lot. Flygon is supposed to be a mysterious, sandstorm-dwelling predator that attacks and scavenges from above. But that is the main lore element that I wanted to tweak. As a dragon ground type, Flygon should feel as threatening on the ground as it does in the air. I flirted with this 4-legged build for a while, and I almost turned my back on it. But eventually, by combining it with a more serpentine body, I found a balance that I liked. Once you're happy with the way your design looks, it's always helpful to draw the design from another angle, even if it's just for yourself. It helps you work out how this creature or how this design would look in 3 dimensions. I didn't like the four-legged design because from the front, it made me think of a spider with all the legs radiating out from the center. But its anatomy ended up, once I drew it from the side, to remind me more of a crustacean or a centipede. I wanted to draw this four-legged Flygon in a more dynamic pose, something that you'd see on something like a TCG illustration or a sticker. I've always been really inspired by TCG illustrations. Growing up, I played Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! I started playing Magic recently. I played Force of Will for a while, Duel Masters. I got really into Legends of Runeterra, and the illustrations in that game are just mind-numbingly beautiful. Rest in peace to Legends of Runeterra, but I digress. So after the sketch phase, I moved on to the line work. And for this drawing, I knew that I would need long, swooping shapes. And for my style in particular, I think it's important that the line work be really crisp and precise. Despite the textured, pencil-like brush that I used for my line work, I like being really specific and intentional about the thickness of my lines and where they meet each other. I think I put extra effort into this stage because in the past, this has been an area that I struggled in. The sketch is where you lay the groundwork for all of the expressiveness of your drawing, and the coloring techniques always add a finishing touch that makes me like my drawings a lot more. But that middle step, some people, including me, kind of dislike the line work step compared to the other parts. Some people dislike it so much they just clean up their sketch and color that, and that's totally valid. It's a totally valid way of going about illustration. There's no real wrong answer. I follow plenty of artists on Blue Sky and Instagram who work in that way. So don't be afraid to embrace shortcuts in your artistic style that lean away from elements you aren't good at or aren't interested in. You are free to practice and hone your technique when it comes to your shortcomings. Of course, I encourage that. But you don't have to be good at everything. There is a style out there that suits every artist's needs and every artist's habits. Personally, the line work step in the middle has just never been where I make a lot of my stylistic decisions. So over the years, I realized that and I started to naturally lean on my sketch and my color. As I've gotten better at line work, my goal has been not to make it more complex, but to make it more simple and clean and not overdo any detail. I'll put thicker lines in areas that are in shadow or closer to the viewer. Lines don't exist in real life, but you can imply an object is closer to the camera by making its lines bolder, and making lines thicker in shadowy areas helps push the dimension of your drawing. Those are really the only inking techniques that I lean on because I'd rather do a lot of that work in the coloring phase, if that makes sense. We've still got quite a bit of work left on this, but I will take this moment to say if you're this far in the video, hit it with a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. At the end of the video, I'll link some more Pokemon and art tip videos I've done. Specifically my Blastoise coloring video. It's full of digital coloring tips and techniques for just general color theory and how to apply it, and that one got a criminally low amount of views, if I may say so. So go check that one out at the end. I'll have a link. So when redesigning any Pokemon, I always give in to the temptation to give them something new, an ability, a type, an attack. This just wouldn't be Design Twist if I was just bringing the same thing to the table, right? I have to bring something new. So first of all, as far as its stats are concerned, let's just all shake hands and do this, okay? We're just gonna take this, we're gonna put it over here, and we're all gonna be okay with that because it's all good. Anyway, moving on. So for this Flygon, I've decided its type will be, drumroll please, Dragon Ground. Okay, let me explain, Wait, I know I said I was changing its type, but while I'm keeping the original type the same, I'm going to change its ability and give it a unique move that does affect its type. So for the ability, I've never really been a big fan of Levitate. I know avoiding entry hazards is cool and everything, and having another immunity is not really anything to scoff at. You know, you don't take any damage from ground moves, but I'm going to be swapping that out for two specific abilities, Punk Rock and Sand Veil. Punk Rock plays more into Flygon's lore, as it's said to be preceded by the humming sound of its wings. Its ability to learn Bug Buzz and, as of Gen 8, Boom Burst take perfect advantage of the boost to sound-based attacks that Punk Rock gives you. It may not be as thematically accurate as it is on Toxtricity, which I'm selling a very cool sticker of on my Etsy, link in the description, but this Flygon does have enough tenacious attitude to sell that ability. It's making its own noise and it's not affected by yours. Sandveil, on the other hand, seems to have no use here at all, and people familiar with it probably just shrugged and said, why Sandveil doesn't do anything? Why is that here? It gives the user immunity to sandstorm damage, and like I said before, as a ground type, Flygon does not take sandstorm damage, so Sandveil would seem pointless. But it isn't when we look at its new signature move, Take Off. This would be a bug type move with increased priority. The user of Take Off avoids damage from the next attack and changes its secondary type to bug. Then Take Off changes itself into a different move called Crash Down. So let me break that down. This would be a defensive move that puts Flygon in an evasive state for one turn, sort of like a thematic compromise of Fly and Protect. By changing its type to Bug, you can strategically alter your weakness, especially your extremely scary 4x Ice weakness. After using Take Off, Flygon would be a Dragon Bug. But by losing the ground type, it actually becomes susceptible to sandstorm damage if it's running Punk Rock and not Sandveil. Changing your type in this way comes with the benefit of getting same type attack bonus for bug type moves on follow-up turns. Until you switch out, you can choose to continue the match in that typing, but only the first attack thrown at you will miss. I imagine Flygon would start on the ground as a Dragon Ground, then after using Takeoff, become a Dragon Bug. It would take on a flying animation, and if the designers wanted to be really cool, it could add a buzzing or a humming sound to the battle music. Finally, Takeoff is replaced in your move list by the move Crash Down. This would effectively take over for the typical negative multiplier that's placed on protection moves in Pokemon that make them less likely to succeed if you use them over and over. Instead of that multiplier, Takeoff just gets replaced by a different attack. It forces you to use that attack to switch back to a grounded state. Crash Down, in contrast, is a 100 base power ground type move that changes your secondary type back to ground upon use. And on hit, it lowers your opponent's speed by 1 stage, obviously being replaced by Takeoff again after use. There's no other bells and whistles on this, it's just a souped up Earthquake that you have to use Takeoff first to use. I don't want this Flygon to be a dual mode Pokemon like Aegislash or Darmanitan. Its stats aren't going to change as it goes back and forth, and its biology doesn't either, it's just flying. For all you Fallout fans out there, it's like choosing between Cazador mode and Mirelurk mode. So pick your poison, I guess, because neither of those options are good. As a little bit of story time as we reach the third act of this video, I just want to talk about my memories of Flygon growing up. This was one of my favorite Pokemon when Ruby and Sapphire first came out. I guess I would have been 12 years old, and for some reason that I wish I could reach into my own brain in the past and pick out, I decided I wanted to have 2 Flygons on my party. And I remember I named one of them, I guess it was a cross between Vibrava and Flygon. I named it Vlyglava. I can't defend this now. I don't know what that was. I don't remember the other one's name. It's been lost to time. But I had 2 Flygons on my party, and they must have had different movesets, right? They must have. Was I smart enough to make one of them physical? There was no physical special split, so was one of them using like Ice Beam and Dragon Breath, and the other one was using like Earthquake and Mega Punch or something like that? What could I possibly have been doing that granted me any strategic value with 2 Flygons? I do not know. But I just found this out today as I was writing this script. Apparently Shelly in the Pokemon manga has 2 Vibravas. So I like to think that maybe my character from Ruby and Shelly had the same idea. Maybe the Vibravas were siblings and they just worked together. Ultimately, I'll surround my drawing in a thick black holding line, and for this drawing I chose to remove it from the wings so that they caught a little bit less attention. For the colors, I went with Flygon's regular palette. It's not broke, so I'm not fixing it. 2 tones of green with a red secondary color works just fine for me. There aren't really many Pokemon whose color palettes simply don't work. The shiny forms, on the other hand, are a different story, but thankfully shiny Flygon looks very cool, and I'll show a version of that at the end. Back in the day when I was that young, all of the locations in Ruby and Sapphire were so iconic. I think that is my favorite map in any Pokemon game. My favorite the Hoenn region is so good, and I guess that does track considering Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire is my favorite Pokemon game. All of the areas and the biomes in that game are so varied and so interesting. There's that rainy area up there by Four Tree City that has the cast form, and Absol and Tropius and Kecleon are up there. There's the ashy volcano area. There's, oh god, what was the name of that mountain? Meteor Falls. Yeah, Meteor Falls is so interesting with the Bagon and Solrock and Lunatone over there. Then there's like the Sandstorm area, which always reminds me of Gabby and Ty standing there with their camera and microphone like, we're not going up there, homie. We're good. We will interview and battle you right here. Then there's the area that has, as they say, 7 out of 10 too much water. That area was a little empty, but as a kid, I'm like, where am I even going? It's so open. There are some screens in Ruby and Sapphire that are completely blue, left to right, top to bottom. And I always used to use the shoreline or rocks or the edge of the map as a guideline of where I was. And sometimes if you surfed in the wrong direction, you were just in open ocean and I'd just get lost, even though it's not a lot of space. You can walk in any direction for about 4 seconds and reach a wall. But at the time, I don't know, I just went on a tangent of how much I loved Ruby and Sapphire. Battle Frontier was goated, Emerald is goated, great memories of this generation. And Flygon really felt like the most accessible dragon type compared to the Dragonite and Kingdra of the past. Like, this legendary type was now easier to put on your team. Maybe that's why I put 2 of them on there, who knows. I always find it interesting to go back and see what my team was in previous Pokemon games. That little team of 6 is so important to you, or 5, or however many you use. Maybe you're the type of player that just uses your starter and one other random thing. But I've always had a balanced team of 5 or 6 Pokemon that all have different types and different roles, but I can never remember them after a few years have passed. Just the other day, I loaded up my Pokemon Sword and looked at my team and saw Inteleon, Orbeetle, and Hitmonchan, and I thought to myself, there's a Hitmonchan on my party? Like fully level 70 Hitmonchan with all 3 elemental punches and Drain Punch. And then it all came back to me and remembered I caught it when it was a Tyrogue and tried my best to get a Tyrogue that would level up into Hitmonchan. And I'm like, I had no memory in my head of having a Hitmonchan through that whole game. But he was sitting there with his Hall of Fame ribbon or whatever it was in that game. Fascinating that I had Hitmonchan in my party. But anyway, back to Flygon. If you played the card game during a certain era in the mid to late 2000s, there was a specific meta of the Pokemon card game where there's a card called Delta Flygon EX, and that thing was just an unstoppable monster for probably a couple of months. It felt like a year when I was like 15, but it was just a really strong, actually Delta species had different types than the normal Pokemon, so it was a psychic type Flygon, and it would deal damage to each of your opponent's cards in play every single turn, basically like they were all poisoned. I think it was supposed to be like a sandstorm. Was it called Psychic Storm? I don't remember. I'll put it on the screen. But that card was a beast, and we all had to deal with it at every tournament. And I just remember getting beaten by it so many times. That's the legacy of Flygon. I'm sure since then there's been, hopefully, other Flygon cards that have been meta or usable, but I haven't been in the trading card game in a long time. And also, shout out to Sunberry for requesting Flygon. They specifically requested Mega Flygon, but as I was thinking about this and wanting to make a Mega Flygon, the idea to have a type-changing attack on Flygon was too juicy, so I ended up going with that one. Since you said in the comments of my Kanto Megas video that you wanted to have a Mega Flygon, you are personally invited to make a Mega form of this crazy type-changing Flygon. Instead of doing a Hoenn Megas video, I did this. I still might do a Hoenn Megas video. Coming up with the structure of those videos is hard, because the Kanto Megas video took a long time. It was 5 total illustrations, and then I didn't want the video to be an hour long as I showed the full artistic process of every single Mega. So for the Johto one, I only did 3, and I got to show a lot more of the art, but I'm not sure if people would rather see the final drawing and then have me talk about gameplay, or if they want to see the sketch and then show the final, or have the sketch done and show each brushstroke as I do the line work, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what people want. So feel free to leave a comment of what part of the artistic process you want to see or hear about the most, or what your experience has been with watching art videos like that in the past, so I can figure out the best way to move forward with videos like that, because I still want to do a video where I do like 3 Hoenn megas, because I still have more in mind. Hoenn has some of my favorite Pokemon in it, so I could probably make 10 or 12 Hoenn megas, all of the Pokemon in the generation that don't have megas yet. But I'm not going to do that. I have to limit myself at least a little bit so I can get to Sinnoh and beyond. But if you like my work, you can follow me on Blue Sky or Instagram. I also have an Etsy where I'm selling stickers, including some of these Pokemon stickers, like the Toxtricity that I mentioned earlier, as well as a lot of random fandom stickers, unique designs, and a lot of Deltarune as well. The link for that is in the description, as well as everything else I mentioned. I don't want to overkill it with the Pokemon videos, but I'm having a lot of fun designing them right now, so why not? My next video is going to be imagining Pokemon for each of the Fallout factions. So I'm going to do NCR, Caesar's Legion, Vault-Tec, and a few more. Then after that, I'll get back to Hoenn Megas, and we'll see from there. So thank you so much for watching Design Twist. I hope you love my Flygon design. Feel free to recommend Pokemon for my Sinnoh video below, because I'm going to get to that eventually. But otherwise, peace.